Hello, thank you all for joining us today. My name is Florence Marr from the Rotary Peace Fellowship Alumni Association, and this is Bearing Witness. We are going to hear today from 3 hibakusha, atomic bomb survivors from Nagasaki, Japan, who are going to share our stories with us and their messages of peace. This is 2020, the 75th anniversary of the use of nuclear weapons in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, Japan. And we are very lucky to still have this in living memory so that we can learn from what happened in Nagasaki and Hiroshima and commit to peaceful way forward without the use of, hopefully, weapons of mass destruction, such as nuclear weapons. The purpose of this event, though, is to listen to these survivors and to learn from them and to hear their stories and witness through their eyes what they experienced. So I just want to ask everyone to stay on mute throughout the event so that we can hear from them. They're in their 90s and they have been working hard to learn how to use Zoom so that they can be here with us online. So please stay on mute so that everyone can hear them and that we can all learn from them about their message of peace. I want to also recognize that tomorrow is the United Nations International Peace Day, which also gives special relevance to us gathering here today on the 75th anniversary of the use of nuclear weapons and on the day before International Peace Day. Just a brief review of the agenda. We will be hearing from 3 atomic bomb survivors, and then we will have the opportunity to go into breakout rooms for Q&A. Participants will be automatically divided into one of the breakout rooms. Since we are expecting that the breakout rooms will be very full, again, please stay on mute and type your questions into the chat box. This event is being organized by the Rotary Peace Fellowship Alumni Association in partnership with the Nagasaki Foundation for the Promotion of Peace. And without their support, this would not have been possible. So thank you to them. And also thank you to the many volunteers. We have a very international and multi-generational volunteer team that is helping to make this possible. Students from Nagasaki, Japan, students from Tokyo, Japan, community members who are spread all around the world, some of whom are Rotary Peace Fellowship alumni. And I also want to recognize the support of the Japanese Rotarians who have made possible the Rotary Peace Center at International Christian University in Tokyo, Japan, which was one of the lodestones for starting this event. So now I want to turn over the floor to Ms. Michiko Yokoyama, who is from the Nagasaki Foundation for the Promotion of Peace and who has been instrumental in organizing this event today. She will introduce the atomic bomb survivors and she will moderate the testimony of those survivors, and then we will go into the breakout rooms. So again, please everyone stay on mute, and thank you so much for joining us. I know at very inconvenient hours for many of you who are joining from all over the world. So I will give the floor now to Ms. Yokoyama.
Okay, thank you, Florence. Welcome, everyone. My name is Michiko Yokoyama. I'm a staff member at the Nagasaki Foundation for the Promotion of Peace. It's a private-public partnership dedicated to promoting peace through the abolition of nuclear weapons. I'm very happy to see all of you here today. This year, as many of the world, we had a bit of challenge of going out to send hibakusha to share their testimony. But thanks to all these youth volunteers, now we are sending a message of peace from Nagasaki to many of the countries. So we are very excited. Today, I want to present 3 hibakushas with a very, very powerful testimony. They were at the age of 6 to 18 at the time of bombing. They have different stories, but they were at that time, they were at the very close to area where very close to the hypocenter, which is like 1 kilometer to 2 kilometers. It is almost a miracle that they survived. So now they're in their 80s and 90s, but one will share in Japanese with my translation, but the other studied English. So it may be a little bit challenging to hear some of the English, but this is their passion to deliver the message of peace using English. So thank you. So first, I want to present our first hibakusha, who is Mr. Michiaki Ikeda. He was the age of 6 when the atomic bomb dropped, and he was in one of the hospital with his mother. So let's just welcome him.
Hello. 1945年8月9日、私が被爆したのは6歳の時でした。その日は長崎大学病院の屋上で友達のしげちゃんと2人で遊んでいました。すると、しげちゃんがトイレに行きたいというので、2人はエレベーターで1階へ降り、扉が開いたので、廊下へ一歩踏み出した時、強烈な光が見え、その瞬間、私は気を失ってしまいました。
9th of August 1945, I was 6 years old when the atomic bomb hit my city. I was playing with my best friend, Shige-chan, at the top floor of Nagasaki University Hospital where my mother was working. Shige-chan told me that he wanted to go to bathroom. So we took an elevator to the ground floor, and we just stepped outside of the corridor. At that time, we are struck by a huge light. And what I remember is probably I fainted at the moment.
しばらくして気がついたら、私は廊下の板が剥がれ、下の土の上に転がっていました。煙と燃える音が迫ってきたので、危険を感じ、板の剥がれていない廊下へよじ登りました。廊下は一面ガラスの破片で、廊下の向こうに一人のナースが壁にもたれてしゃがんでいましたので、近寄ってみると、その人はガラス片で頭や顔を傷して全身が真っ赤でした。
I don't know how long it was, but when I realized I was laying on the floor, wooden floor, which was damaged, I could see the smoke and also hear the fire burning. So I felt dangerous. I thought that it was dangerous to be here. So I decided to climb up to the corridor where it wasn't damaged. I saw the shards of glass everywhere, and I also found a nurse leaning on a wall. So I just started to crawl onto her. Then I found her like red. Her body was red as well as her face, and I saw that she was injured by all the glass shards.
それから私は中庭に出てみると、中庭は火の海でした。その火の中に数人の人が死んでいました。その人たちの様子は、髪の毛は皆焼けてちりぢり、そして目の玉が飛び出してほっぺたへくっついていました。唇は上下にめくれ、歯はむき出しで、腕、足、腹は2倍くらいに腫れて、全身がすすかきしぼこりで真っ黒になっていて、たとえ家族の人が見ても、これはうちの人ですと判別できなかっただろうと思います。
So I just escaped to the garden of the hospital now, and what I saw was a sea of fire. I saw some people lying and presumably dead in the fire, and I remember their hair were burnt, and also I remember a face which lost their eyeball, so eyeball were out of their sockets. I saw some people with teeth exposed because presumably they lost their lips. Some people had legs and arms and stomach swollen. And when they are found to recognize them.
私は大学病院に大きな爆弾がたくさん落ちたので、こんなひどいことになったのだと思い、大学病院から逃げ出して街を見ると、 町はもっと大変で、町全体が火の海でした。そうした中からたくさんの人たちが山を目指して逃げてくるのです。
Well, what I saw was probably a huge bomb attacked the hospital. So I saw that this is why the hospital became such a state. So I started to run away from the hospital towards the town. But when I saw the town, it was again sea of fire, and I could see so many people running from that fire, heading towards the mountain.
逃げてくる人たちを見ると、やけどがひどく、二の腕の皮膚は垂れ下がり、山へ登るにも体力がないのか、途中で次々と倒れますが、誰も手を貸す人もなく倒れたままでした。
So all these people are passing by me, they're escaping the fire, and when I saw them, their burns were terrible. Some of the people's skin was going down from the body, and probably they didn't have enough strength to climb up the mountain. Some people trying so hard to go there that they started to fall one by one, but nobody could help them.
私はコンピュラ山へ逃げました。そこには神社があり、井戸もあり、そこで顔を洗い、飲んだりしました。神社から少し離れたところに高射砲陣地があり、その周りにはたくさんの防空壕があり、避難してきた人たちは皆防空壕へ入り、休憩しました。
I also started to run into the mountains, which is called Compira, which is a local, very well-known small mountain. The reason was because I remember there was a shrine and there was a well. So I went there and I washed my face and I also drank water. A little bit far away from the shrine, there was a cannon where Japanese soldiers were. So now I headed there, go there. And because I remember there was a lot of aid shelter. I went to escape there with other people who are running toward that aid shelter.
日が暮れると兵隊さんから防空壕にいる全員に乾パン2枚ずつが配られ、それが夕食代わりでした。夜になっては空が赤々と染まり、街がまだ燃え続けていることが分かりました。昼間からの激動続きで疲れたのでしょう。いつの間にか眠ってしまいました。これが私の8月9日です。
As the sun is going by, I remember our soldiers gave us 2 dried bread in the air shelter. So that was my dinner on that day. And in the evening, I could see the town still burning like fire in the very red color. I was a child. I must be so tired. So I think I just went to sleep on that day. But what I remember about the 9th of August is this is the event which took on 9th of August.
翌朝、目が覚めて大人について山を降り、まだ煙の上がっている瓦礫の中に人や馬や牛、犬のむくろが累々の中を皆黙々と爆心地へ向かっていました。
So the next morning, when I woke up, I again followed a doubt, and I went down the mountain and went back to the town. I could see the smoke still going on, and I remember seeing humans, horses, cows, dogs. They are all dead. We are all silent, but we are all going back to town, to the hypocenter, which we didn't know at that time.
私はその行列から離れ、大学病院へ向かいました。大学病院へ登る坂道の手前で焼け跡に水が出っ放しの水道管があり、そこで水を飲んで大学病院へ登っていきました。
Soon after, I left these people who are going to the town and head to hospital, university hostel where my mother was working. And just in front of the hospital on the slope, I found a water pipe which was broken, and I could see the water coming from there. So I drank the water, and I started to and head to the hospital.
するとしげちゃんが走ってきて、おばちゃんは怪我して寝てるというので驚いて病室へ駆け込んでいくと、私の母は背中に100個ほどのガラス片が刺さり、ベッドにうつ伏せになっていました。私は母の姿を見た途端、涙があふれて止まりませんでした。
Then my friend Shige-chan, who I lost at the hospital at the time of bombing, phoned me, ran towards me and shouted to me, "Oh, your mom is injured and she's sleeping." So I was so surprised, and I just rushed into one of the room. I saw my mother who was injured. She was lying on her stomach because glass of shards, probably 100 more, was stuck into her back. I couldn't stop crying once I saw her.
他の病室にも3、4人の患者さんが生き残っていました。私は空の一升瓶を見つけて、それに水を汲んでくることにしました。しげちゃんと2人で病院の下の水道まで汲みに行きました。汲んで戻るとき、道脇に真っ黒に汚れた姿で転がっている3人の人たちがいたので、水を分けてあげました。その人たちはありがとうでもなく、ただ大きなため息をついただけでした。
There were just 3, 4 survivors in the hospital remaining, so I decided to help them. I found a glass of sake, and I decided to bring water with my best friend Shige-chan. So we went back to find the water. And after I got this water, I found some people lying on the road, looks like black, very black, like the charcoal. And so I decided to give the water to them. They didn't have enough strength to say arigato, thank you, but they sighed.
瓶が空になったので、また戻って水を汲んで大学病院へ登っていったら、そこにも3人の人が下の人たちのような状態で倒れていたので、その人たちにも水をあげました。するとこの人たちも大きなため息だけでした。
So I gave all this water. So now again, we went back to fetch the water and went back to the hospital. And I found 3 people there lying like exactly the same situation like the people on the ground. So I gave the water to them. And then again, it is the same thing. They didn't have enough strength, but all I heard was a huge sigh.
また瓶が空になったので3本目を汲みに戻ったら、先ほど水をあげた3人はもう息をしていませんでした。私は大変なことをしてしまったと思いながら3本目を汲んで上に登っていったら、そこの3人もこと切れていました。
So now the bottle of sake is empty again. So I went back to the water to help people for the 3rd time. And what I saw was those people who I gave water previously were no longer alive. And I saw that I did a really awful things to them. But I still got the water and went back to the hospital. Then I found these people all dead too.
私は病室へ戻り、おじちゃん、僕が水を飲ませたらみんな死んでしまったと言うと、おじちゃんたちはそうか。でもね、心配しなくていい。その人たちは水を飲んでも飲まなくてももう死ぬんだったんだ。だから死ぬ間際にみっちゃんからおいしい水をもらって安心して死んでいったんだ。威張っていいんだと慰められました。
When I went back to the hospital, I found a guy, so I just shouted at him, "Oh, uncle, I think I killed all these people by giving water." Then he replied like this, "Oh, that is sad, but you don't worry about it. These people probably going to die anyway. Then probably you gave them the last very delicious water to them. And so you have to be a little bit, you don't have to worry about it." This is what I remember on the day of the atomic bomb. So this is a very limited testimony, but this is what he remembers on the day. He was 6 years old. So his story was going on later about his mother and family, but I want you to ask him as questions. So now I would like to present second hibakusha, Mr. Tsuiki Shohei. He's 93 years old. He was 18 at the time of bombing. So his memory is very clear. He was also lucky to survive. He started to study English at the age of 90. And it's been 3 years he's studying. And we are training him. This will be his first time really talking to such a big audience. So I want to welcome Mr. Tsuiki.
Good afternoon. I'm Shohei Tsuiki, 93 years old. Let me tell you a story about myself. When I was 18 years old, about 7 decades ago, on August 1945, I was a student at a teacher's college called Nagasaki Normal School. I was eager to become a teacher, but when the war started, all of us were forced to work rather than study. We worked in a munition factory to make weapons and lived in a dormitory on the school. This dormitory was located in Nishi-Urakami, which was just 1,800 meters from the hypocenter. On August 9th, 1945, I was on the night shift at the munition factory. I was making munitions. At 7 a.m., I returned to the dormitory. My breakfast was boiled pumpkin and soup with miso. We no longer had any rice, meat, or fish. As usually, I went to bed hungry. I don't remember how long I slept that day, but at 11:02 a.m., there was a great boom. But when I woke up by the loud noise, I was flying through the air. I was slammed into a wall. I didn't know what was going on and thought that a bomb hit the next boom. Then the room was filled with a strange smell and all was quiet. I wanted to run to the closest air shelter, but it was pitch black. I have no sense of direction. I looked over to my friend who was sleeping next to me. From the top of his head to the bottom of the feet, he was bright red bleeding. And I was bleeding all over my body too. Shards of glass were all over the room. I was saved by my futon. I used sleep covering my head and body for protection even in the summer. Futon saved me. from the grass, charred and burned. Some shards were stuck in my body, but I was okay. Only my left arm was injured with burns since I left it out of stone. My shoulder was burning, so I put out the flames feeling no pain. Of course, I did not know anything about atomic bomb at that time. Since I was sleeping, I did not hear sound of the bomb and didn't see the bright flashlight which others saw. Futon saved me, not only my body, but my eyes too. My roommate and I arrived and found our way to the shelter outside of the dormitory. It was full of injured people, mostly women, children, and elderly from the neighborhood. There were about 30 people all suffering from burns. They looked terrible. Some were with blisters all over their bodies. Some were missing their face. I saw a woman, a young mother, holding her dead baby. She was black like charcoal. I saw faces without eyes, nose, lips, or ears. Red skin hung down from their faces and bodies. They had human shapes but were red from blood or black from being burned. They all looked like zombies. I thought it was the end of the world. I thought it was like a hell. Sometimes later, fire began in the dormitory. I heard from a friend later that those pinned under the flattened houses as the fire approached burned alive. Someone told us to go to the first year center in Nagayo in the north. With my roommate, I staggered northward. We walked on barefoot, 10 kilometers to get there. I found out later that it was good, that we left quickly. Otherwise, we are exposed to more radiation. All I could do was to walk. I couldn't think. I didn't feel pain. It must have been a hot day, but I didn't feel anything at all. We walked and hoped. We hoped to get to Nagayo, to the first aid center, to the rest of my family who were in Nagayo. Their evacuation from city area. I could never imagine that a single bomb could destroy entire city. So I thought an air raid took place in Nagasaki, while I was sleeping. While walking, I saw houses which were fallen back in one direction. I did not smell anything. It was a strange feeling. After walking about 5 kilometers, we passed by Michino Station. I was bleeding and could not walk any longer. Station building was still there, but I could not see any human being. It was empty. My friend and I must have waited about 3 minutes for a train to coming, but it never came. There were a group of people so we started to walk again. There were a group of people heading Nagayo. When we started back, while walking 10 kilometers to Nagayo, we are all separated. I remember hearing a horn of a train. I thought it was about 4 in the afternoon. Then, but later, I found out it was the first rescue train which arrived at 1 p.m. Right after I was treated at the end center. I could not get up any longer. Next day, my father and brother found me at the center. When I woke up, I saw my family, and I thought it was a dream. First, when my father saw me, he didn't recognize to me. But 30 minutes after, he back again. This time, he found me. My family brought me back home and took a good care of me. I had 40 degrees fever for 2 months and was in my bed for 3 months. My burn left became terribly painful. I suffered and mourned all day for months. I wanted to die. I have keloid now. After the war, I learned that people who are within 1,000 meters from the hypocenter were instantly killed. Survivors who are within 1,800 meters suffered terrible effects of the atomic bomb. People died one after the other because of the radiation. Many people died from cancer and leukemia in 10 years. As you can see, I am lucky to be alive. This is my experience with the atomic bombing. Although I was injured, I was lucky. I survived. This is the reason why I'm here today, to tell you about this terrible weapon. I strongly believe that we must get rid of all the nuclear weapons. in the world, so that no one will be hurt. We must never use it again. If we ever use it again, it will truly be the end of the earth. Please don't forget this Allman's prayer for the peace. Thank you for listening.
So finally, I will present to you the third hibakusha, Mr. Yoshiro Yamawaki. He was 11 years old at the time of bombing, and his most painful experience is burying his father with his brothers. これ見せられるの？こうやって見せる。反対側にしてみる。カメラ見てこれ画面は映らないので喋るだけ、はい、画面は映らないから喋るだけになるけど、そうですか。もし見せたいものがあったら反対にして見せることはできるんです。はい、どうぞ。
I was exposed to the atomic bombing while at home, some 2.2 kilometers from the site of the explosion. At present, I am 86 years old. Let me first tell you about my family back then. My father, who was 47 years old, worked as an engineer for the Mitsubishi Electric Corporation. My mother was 37 years old, and there were 7 children, including myself. My older brother was 14 years old and a third-year junior high school student. My twin brother and I were 11 years old and in 6th grade at elementary school. I had 2 younger sisters and 2 younger brothers as well, making for a total of 9 people in the family. Actually, US Air Forces attacked Nagasaki 3 times, 2 weeks before atomic bombing. My mother was shocked by this incident. She took my younger brother and sister, went to her mother's home to Saga. The day before the atomic bombing. Let me first let me explain about the map. You have the map. The map is of the atomic bombing hypocenter area at that time. The red line shows the route that my brother and I took immediately after the bombing. When I went from our house, which is marked with the X, to the place where our father's factory was located. We went there because my father had not returned home. Please look at this photograph. This boy was exposed to the atomic bombing while at the moment of the explosion, the skin melted from his back, leaving it look like a crushed tomato. You can see that my house was just outside, 2 kilometers radius in which this boy was. On the morning of the atomic bombing, our father went off to work as usual. My older brother, the junior high school student, went off to the weapons factory where he was helping out as part of mobilized student forces. The two of us twins stayed at home because it was summer vacation. And until just before 11 o'clock, we were out on the veranda. When we got hungry, we went to the sitting room at the back of the house. And while we were sitting around the table, a whitish blue light shot across the room. Then came a roar that seemed to shake the whole house. The two of us got down on the tatami mat and covered our eyes and ears and noses with our fingers. While we were in that position, plaster and other debris came falling down on top of us. After a few minutes, the falling debris became more infrequent. And while I lifted my head up and looked around to find everything completely changed, almost the furniture had been mangled and tossed around. The walls had come crumbling down, and in every room, the tatami mat floors were covered with dirt and debris, with furniture scattered all about. The roof had been blown off as well, and we could see the sky. The pillars and walls were embedded with large numbers of sharp-edged fragments of broken glass. The two of us evacuated to the bomb shelter in our yard, where we waited for our father and our older brother to come home. About an hour had passed when my brother arrived home from his factory. At that time, he said that it was too dangerous to stay in that tiny bomb shelter and that we should move to the larger one nearby. The bomb shelter, which was like a tunnel carved into the cliffside, was filled with mothers and their children. The children who had been showered in the heat rays while outside had suffered burn to any exposed skin. Other children were crying because their bodies had been stabbed by shards of glass and other fragments that had been thrown by the blast. If my twin brother and I had left the veranda to go to the sitting room 5 minutes later, we most likely would have suffered horrible wounds from the heat rays and blast. We spent that entire night worrying anxiously for our father to come back. By the next morning, however, he still hadn't returned. At that point, the three of us brothers headed off to find him. Please look at the map. By looking at the red line, you can see that we walked from a point about 2 kilometers from the hypocenter to a place only 500 meters away from it. Of course, we didn't have any idea that the bomb dropped had been an atomic bomb, nor that my father's factory was so close to the site where it had exploded. As we continued on, the damage grew worse and worse. The houses at the roadside had all burned to the trees, and electric poles were scorched, although they remained standing. The factory on the other side of the river now looked like masses of crushed wire, with only the largest of their columns remaining standing. There were many dead bodies among the debris littering the roads. The faces arms and legs had swollen up, making them look like black rubber dolls. When our shoes touched these bodies, the skin would come peeling off just like that of an overripe peach, exposing the white fat underneath. There were many dead bodies floating in the river as well. We were drawn to one that belonged to a young woman of about 18 or 19, from which a long white cross belt was dragging behind. Looking closer, we saw that this white belt was really her intestines, which were protruding from the side of her abdomen. Feeling nauseous, we turned our eyes away and hurried off again in the direction of our father's factory. When we had come within about 100 meters of our father's factory, my brother suddenly screamed out and stood paralyzed with fear. I looked over his shoulder to see a boy of 6 or 7 who had died with something white hanging out of his mouth. At first glance, it seemed to me that he had been vomiting up noodles when he died. Looking closer, however, I realized that the round worms that had been living inside his body had come shooting out at once. We ran away, fighting back our nausea. Our father's factory had also been reduced to nothing but scorched metal framing. Through the demolished walls, we caught a glimpse of the factory and saw 3 men working with shovels. We called out, "Our name is Yamawaki. Where is our father?" One of the men glanced over and said, your father is over there." He pointed in the direction of the demolished office building. The three of us dashed off in the direction he had pointed. What we saw there, however, was our father's corpse, swollen and scorched just like all the others. As we stood there stunned, the man with the shovel said to us, "If you want to take your father back home with you, you'd better cremate him here. If you don't want to do that, the only other thing to do is bury him here. What are you going to do?" The crematories had also been destroyed in the bombing and couldn't be used. With nothing else to do, we went around the scorched ruins of the factory and gathered up the smoldering pieces of wood. When we lit it on fire, the flame rose high in the air. We put our hands together and said prayers for him. When we looked up again after finishing our prayers, we saw both of our father's feet sticking out from the fire. That was an absolutely unbearable thing to see. The next morning, we went to collect our father's remains. When we arrived at the place where we had cremated our father's body, however, a shock awaited us. The body still remained as it had been the day before, in a half-cremated state. We 3 brothers only waited to collect our father's cremated bones, but his half-cremated body was lying exposed. The only part of his body that had been cremated were the tips of his hands and feet of part of his stomach. We could only pick out a few of his bones. This body, which was like a skeleton covered in ash, was far more gruesome than the corpse of someone just deceased. It got so that I couldn't bear to look at our father's body anymore. And I said to my brother, let's go home now and leave his body here. My brother looked at our father's body for a while longer and then said, we can't do anything more. We'll just take his skull home, and that will be the end. When the tongs my brother had brought touched our father's skull, however, it crumbled apart like a plaster model, and a half-burned brain came flowing out. Letting out a scream, my brother threw down the tongs and darted away. The other two of us ran after him. My mother passed away 15 years ago at the age of 97. I never ever told her the detail of what happened when we went to retrieve our father's remains. After our fathers died, my twin brother and I began working. We were 15 years old then, and we worked for next 45 years until we were 60. When I was 35, I began to have liver and kidney troubles. Because of this, I have been admitted to Nagasaki Atomic Bomb Hospital 15 times. I was given interferon and other treatments, which I am still receiving. Unfortunately, in 2008 September, my doctor informed me that I had stomach cancer, and in October, I underwent surgery at Nagasaki University Hospital. And in 2010 January, I had surgery yet again. I should add that my older brother and my twin brother are also victims of cancer. One university professor has written that the atomic bomb killed people 3 times over. I think these words truly represent the horrific nature of the three destructive forces of the atomic bomb: its heat rays, its explosion burst, and its radiation rays. Let us all work together to build a peaceful world free of war. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Yamawaki-san. And so this is our 3 testimonies today. And now I think we are going to break at sessions. Since we had limited time, we couldn't share everything that they experienced. So please feel free to ask any questions at the group session. Thank you.
All right, thank you to the Hibakusha. This is Florence Marr from the Rotary Peace Fellowship Alumni Association. I'm just going to give a short explanation for our participants. So we are going to go into 3 breakout sessions. You will be automatically assigned. And in each breakout session, there will be 1 Hibakusha, atomic bomb survivor, and that Hibakusha will be supported by student volunteers from Nagasaki and Tokyo, some who are Japanese, some who are international. So please, participants, stay on mute and type your questions into the chat box, and our student volunteers will select your questions from the chat box, and they will translate them for the Hibakusha who will answer, and then they will translate the answers. So we won't have time to do so many questions, so please be very mindful and try and ask questions that will be very impactful. And I just want to kind of recognize again the tremendous work of our multi-generational student volunteers who are from Nagasaki, Tokyo, and international students studying in Japan. So we will be going into, again, 3 breakout sessions. In room 1, we will have Hibakusha Yoshio Yamawaki, supported by Nagasaki student Seika Yamada and International Christian University student Hillary Rosentrader. In room 2, we'll have Hibakusha Shohei Tsuiki, supported by Nagasaki student Kyoka Miyake and International Christian University student Takashi Kitano. And in room 3, we will have Hibakusha Michiaki Ikeda, supported by Nagasaki student Fumiya Taniguchi and International Christian University student Milo Borisov. and local Mitaka community member Yutaka Kakuma. So please, again, participants, stay on mute and type your questions into the chat box so that our student volunteer team can select and translate the questions and then translate the answers. All right, so I think, Elsa, if you want to sort us into the breakout sessions. So we will have 25 minutes in the breakout rooms, and then we will come back here just for final closing remarks.
そして我々はもうすぐ、死んでいくわけですから、若い人たちが核兵器を使われた結果がどういうものかということをしっかり、掴んで、それを、後世に伝えていってもらいたい。また世界中に広げてもらいたいと思います。そういうことで核兵器がないそういう世界になっていくように願っております。
Okay, so I asked him.
But of course, the most important thing, according to Yamawaki-san, is to hear the words of those who have experienced the bombing personally, if you can. So this is a great chance for us to listen to Yamawaki-san's story. So thank you very much for your question, Manoj Joshi. Okay, so we have another question from Bangkok ATD in English first. Looking back, what did people do wrong and why did it happen? Oh, this is a very interesting question. I'm not sure if Yamawaki-san will have an answer, but okay, one moment, please. And just so I'm going to assume that people means both sides of the war, so that is how I'm going to translate it to Yamawaki-san. その当時のことを振り返
Hi, Saurabh. All right, I think track our rooms. We have a few minutes before the official close of the event. So I just want to take this a moment again to thank the Hibakusha for being with us, for figuring out the Zoom technology and for practicing their English and sharing their time and energy with us to relive these painful memories of 75 years ago. And I also want to thank our multi-generational international volunteers. We have in Nagasaki, of course, Michiko Yokoyama and the staff of the Nagasaki Foundation for the Promotion of Peace. We also have several Nagasaki students, Seika Yamada, Kyoka Miyake, Fumiya Taniguchi, who have served as translators and spent a lot of time training to participate in this event. And in Tokyo, we have students at the International Christian University who also helped as translators, Hillary Rosentrader, Takashi Kitano, and Milo Verasov. And then from the community organization in Mitaka, Tokyo, we have Yutaka Kakuma, who also supported this event as a volunteer. And then from the Rotary Peace Fellowship Alumni Association and from the Rotary Peace Center in International Christian University in Tokyo, Japan, we also have the Rotary Peace Fellows Jacqueline McAllister, Elaine Prattley, Andrew Stone, and Elsa Marita Silva, who is our Zoom host, who put a lot of work into the back end of this event, setting up the Zoom call, organizing the breakout sessions. So I want to thank those Rotary Peace Fellows. And then from Rotary International, Bill Rentz, staff member, joining us today. Thank you as well for supporting this event. So I'm going to pass now the floor to Michiko Yokoyama. Oh yeah, one more thing. I just want to note, we have websites where the recording will be available. So we will paste in the chat box. I think Jacqueline will paste in the chat box the website of the Nagasaki Foundation for the Promotion of Peace, for the Rotary Peace Fellowship Alumni Association's Facebook page and website where this recording will be made available. And also, if you would take the time, we would really appreciate you filling out our survey so that we can do better with our events. If you want to hear more from the Hibakusha, they will be speaking online at the University of Hawaii next month. And I think there'll be some information posted in the chat box as well about that. So now I'm going to give the floor to Michiko Yokoyama from the Nagasaki Foundation for the Promotion of Peace, who was the big supporter and organizer of this event and who put all this together on the Nagasaki side so that she can give concluding remarks.
Okay, thank you, Florence. And again, I really want to thank you, every single one of you who joined us here today. And Nagasaki is such a small town, and we never imagined that we can connect to the world like this. I don't know how many people are from, how many countries people are coming here today, joining us, but it's almost unimaginable, but we could deliver the message from Hibakusha to so many people, to so many countries. So I'm very thankful to all of each of you who joined here today and taking time to listening to our story. We have this sense of urgency here in Nagasaki, especially when we talk with Hibakusha. They are aging. They're the last people who can share the story that they experienced. And this sense of urgency is shared by the youth as well. That's why we thought that we don't have time. We have to do this again. So I hope we can have another session again, sometime in the future. And again, many Hibakusha, I have to share this message from many Hibakusha here, that they all want to see you here in Nagasaki next time. When this new virus situation is gone, we are all waiting, along with all these Nagasaki volunteers and Hibakusha, we are waiting for you. So again, thank you for joining, and I hope to see you again in the future.
Florence, I have a request. If Hillary is still around, we got cut off. She was recounting the 3 recommendations for peace. Maybe she can just quickly share with us the 3 recommendations for peace, because we still have a couple of minutes.
Sure, of course. Hillary, you have the floor.
Okay, for sure. So we had a question in our breakout room. It was, how can regular everyday people work together with their governments to achieve peace? Which is a very good question. And Yamawaki-san had a very wonderful answer. He stated that there are 3 sort of conditions that must be fulfilled before peace can sort of happen. So it wasn't really specific actions that people can take, but rather the goals that must be kept in mind as the journey towards peace. And so the first one was, of course, an end to violence. This includes any kind of oppression. The second one was that there needs to be freedom of expression. So again, this sort of ties in with the first, in that people who have different beliefs from yourself or your group, that they must be sort of allowed to exist and be free, especially in terms of religion. And then the third condition is that poverty or sort of wealth disparity must disappear. And so those were sort of the 3 conditions that Yamawaki-san stated are necessary in order to achieve peace. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much. If our Hibakusha have any final comments that they want to say to close this event, maybe Hillary, you can translate any of their final words. You might want to translate that into Japanese if possible.
I feel like the individuals that are with them maybe, okay, it's fine. 被爆者の方、何か最後に言いたいこととか伝えたいこととかってございますでしょうか？残りの方々に。
もっと核兵器を使った戦争における被害の状況を知ってもらいたいなというこの気持ちでいっぱいです。
So from Tsuki-san, he stated that he would like for all of the participants, but everyone in general, to learn more about what took place in Nagasaki and Hiroshima and sort of the stories of the people who suffered from the atomic bombs. So step 1 completed. And thank you for continuing your journey to in learning about the stories of those who suffered from the atomic bombing. 他に何かございますか？
今言われたですね、その暴力がなくなるとか、そういう構造的なものをその今の社会からね、そういう暴力をなくしていきたい。これは戦争の平和の中の一つですけどね、そういう構造的な暴力をなくしていく。その差別だとか、あるいは暴力、それから抑圧ですね、それから環境、そういういろんな制限を取っ払っていきたいというのが願いですね。
Okay, so we had another comment from one of the other hibakusha, basically stating, sort of forcing what Yamawaki-san sort of stated in his 3 conditions. Essentially, for peace to occur, we need to get rid of this sort of structural violence. He specifically stated that the structural violence that exists needs to disappear. And this includes, of course, discrimination, oppression, violence in the direct form as well. And so those are sort of the goals that we must be working towards. So thank you for your final comment.
All right. Thank you so much. So I think now, if there's nothing else, Elsa Maria, I may ask you to officially end this event. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. And the recording will be available on our website. And to hear more from the hibakusha, you're welcome also to attend the University of Hawaii event next month.
Thank you everyone for joining, and do check the Rotary Peace Fellowship Alumni Association Facebook page for more events. And we hope to see you at the next one. Thank you. Bye.